This week's chapter is called Recovering a Sense of Power, and one of the first things that Julia Cameron talks about is anger, which really correlated well with my week this week. She says that anger is fuel, and anger shows us when something in our life needs to change. And I feel like I was talking about this last week about feeling jealous. In this week's chapter, Julia Cameron talks about anger showing us what we want in life, and I think that when we use anger as a tool that can show us where we need to make adjustments, it can be really powerful and really useful. When we're not responding to the anger and we're just feeling angry and feeling horrible, yeah, then it's not so great, is it? So let me read you from this week's chapter some of the things I really enjoyed. Anger is meant to be listened to. Anger is a voice, a shout, a plea, a demand. Anger is meant to be respected. Why? Because anger is a map. Anger shows us what our boundaries are. Anger shows us where we want to go. It lets us see where we've been and lets us know when we haven't liked it. Anger points the way, not just the finger. In the recovery of a blocked artist, anger is a sign of health. Anger is meant to be acted upon. It is not meant to be acted out. Anger points the direction. We are meant to use anger as fuel to take the actions we need to move where our anger points us. With a little thought, we can usually translate the message that our anger is sending us. And then later she goes on to say, sloth, apathy, and despair are the enemy. Anger is not. Anger is our friend, not a nice friend, not a gentle friend, but a very loyal friend. It will always tell us when we have been betrayed. It will always tell us when we have betrayed ourselves. It will always tell us that it is time to act in our own best interests. Anger is not the action itself, it is action's invitation. The times when I didn't advocate for what I knew I truly needed, or the times where I just was not on my side, like the times when I didn't go for what I knew I wanted or go for what I knew I was meant for, and that's when I betrayed myself, and that's when I've been the most mad at myself. All of the times that I've made mistakes and I've messed up and I've done something stupid or I've completely failed, I haven't actually been mad at myself. But all of the times when I haven't taken action because I was afraid and I just totally abandoned myself, that's when I've been the most angry. And so I really think it's interesting that Julia Cameron points this out, that anger is something that is a signal to us that maybe we've betrayed ourselves or we've been betrayed by someone else. I think that was just so beautiful. This week, Julia Cameron also talks about synchronicity, and by that she means like those crazy coincidences. I'm not sure that I believe in coincidences as much as I believe that we live in a benevolent universe that likes to throw us a bone when we really need it. I'm not in a phase where I'm experiencing synchronicity, shall we say. It feels like in my life everything is going wrong, left, right, and center. It just feels like a hot mess. It feels like an absolute disaster, dumpster fire, catastrophe. I was talking to my mom about this yesterday, and when I say talking, I mean crying. It just doesn't feel like there's a single area of my life that I can point to that's going really well. For example, I'm having some health issues that are really affecting my singing. Singing, not going great, not going fantastic. I recently got dumped in a way that was cruel and brutal, and so that's not going well. I've gotten a string of some of the most comically horrible dates that anyone could go on, like dates where I'm like, where is the camera? Am I being pranked? One of my absolute favorite people in the world just moved across the country, and so I mean, like, that's sad. Nothing is going great. I'm getting a rejection letter in the mail at least once a day because it is audition season, and that is the nature of audition season. So I wouldn't say that I'm presently experiencing a lot of synchronicity. But I would say that I've been through phases in my life like this before, where it feels like every single door that I come to absolutely slams in my face. I have come to realize that that happens when there's something that's like meant for me coming. You know, believe what you want, but I genuinely believe this. When you're going through a phase where literally nothing is working out, every door is slamming in your face, everything is going horribly, comically, shockingly wrong, that means that really good things are coming. Like, really great things are on the horizon, and I always try to think of it as like, the universe is trying to free me up to make sure that I am absolutely ready for whatever is coming. I've never had a rejection that didn't make so much sense 6 months later and wasn't completely necessary. And so I'm trying to remind myself that, like, when things just completely fall apart, it's for a reason, and you just have to hold on. that does not make it less painful. One thing that is funny with synchronicity, though, is like the way that this book is always every week lining up so beautifully and so accurately and so perfectly with what's going in my life and what I need. Reading about anger, reading about using it as fuel and creating something productive from it and really like using it to grow something beautiful has been a message that I was very grateful to hear this week, because it makes it feel like everything was not for nothing. There's this quote from this week's chapter that has like really been getting me through, and it says, "When man takes a step towards God, God takes more steps towards that man than there are sands in the worlds of time." This is from The Work of the Chariot. Last week I talked a lot about self-sabotage and how that's been a real issue for me. And so this week I've been doing what I call taking steps towards myself, which is like kind of weird, but I think of it as like there's a version of me on the other side of all of this struggle that is really happy and really well adjusted and grown and is just like doing so well. And every single time I do something to build that part of me, I'm like taking a step towards myself. Things I've been doing to take steps are going to the gym. I've been eating really well and taking really good care of myself, and I've been doing the things that I know need to get done. Maybe you relate to this, where like you know that something needs to be done and you just can't get yourself to do it, and there's no good reason, there's no real explanation behind it, you just can't. And I've been doing really, really well in that arena. Like, I'm so proud. Another thing that I've done this week that's been amazing is rejecting people and things that don't support me, that don't make me feel like my best self, and that are not wanting the best for me. And I think that that is really been a solid choice, a solid, fantastic choice. And to be clear, taking steps towards myself has not been a wonderful, joyful, serendipitous experience all the time. It's been really hard. It's been really draining. This is one of the most difficult and exhausting weeks that I've had in my life. Like, it's been so hard, but also it has been so rewarding. And now that I think, maybe, I mean like knock on wood, I think that I'm getting through a lot of the worst of it. Hopefully, you know, like I'm gonna reap some benefits from all of this. That feels really amazing. And I'm really grateful to myself for all the work that I've been putting in, because I don't really see it paying off yet, but I see that like it's going to. Like my mental health is so much better. I physically feel better. I'm just like starting to see things really like come alive, and that's exciting. So with these steps and taking steps towards myself, this week I really decided to absolutely commit to myself, and Julia Cameron talks about that in this chapter, and she quotes a few different authors on the subject of really committing. So she says, "The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too." And then she also says, "Whatever you think you can do or believe you can do, begin it. Action has magic, grace, and power in it." I love this idea that just taking action is magical and powerful. And I think that she's onto something here. I notice that when I take action on something, like especially a dream, I talked about that a lot last week, doing something tangible, taking action, even if it doesn't like get the dream accomplished right then and there, the knowledge that I have done something to get a step closer and that I have taken action is so empowering, and it makes me feel so powerful and capable and like smart. And that has just had such a snowball effect where I feel like it's been really amazing for my self-confidence, which has not always been great. That's really been turning around. Like, I feel like for the first time ever, I am really seeing myself and like really able to appreciate all of the wonderful things that I have to offer. And in my morning pages this week, I wrote something that was really interesting, or at least it was interesting to me. But I said, it feels like I've been looking at myself through a funhouse mirror, and then finally somebody held up like a normal mirror and I'm getting to see myself for the first time. And it's kind of shocking and disorienting, but I'm so grateful for the experience, because I have had such a skewed vision of who I am and what I'm capable of, and not in a good way. And so finally being able to really see myself has been such a wonderful experience, and it makes me want to work even harder and like put even more energy into myself and like developing the things that I love about myself, because now I can see them, which is really amazing. Like I hope that everyone in the world gets to experience the clarity of sense of self that I have experienced this week, because it's been really amazing. Thank God. It's about time. Oh, and then something else I wrote in my morning pages that I also thought was funny was I wrote, it's nice to meet me. You know, like I really feel, really genuinely, truly, and I know maybe this sounds cheesy, but like I really feel like I'm meeting myself for the first time. It's crazy. I think that honestly, like, it's probably just how well structured this course is. Like the fact that I'm having like all of these building blocks like come together and like build something so elegantly, I think is a real testament to how well this course has been put together and structured. And I think that like the scaffolding makes so much sense. In the first week, we talk about like your monster hall of fame, like the people who have been hurdles to you being your best creative self and like your creative genius. In the second week, we spent a lot of time thinking about what we want from life, how we're doing in different areas of our life, and like really getting clear on like priorities and just like what we love doing. And then in the third week, there was a lot of exercises on the people who have most supported you and most helped you out. With the work that I've done over the last 3 weeks, I feel like I'm stepping more into like who I am and who I'm meant to be, and that has resulted in me being way more confident. I've asked for what I want at work. I've been setting much more realistic goals. We talked about this in the last video where I feel like I will set goals that are like unrealistic, unattainable, and it's like I'm setting myself up to fail. Like it's not that I haven't done amazing things in my life, but it's that like I did those amazing things because I was shooting for a dream that was like so much further out than that. So still me doing amazing things like felt like a failure. And I've never seen this as a problem before. I've always seen this as a good thing, but I really think it is quite damaging. And if you're like this, I would recommend you maybe examine that, because I always thought like, well, setting unrealistic goals ensures that I'm always achieving at a high level. But I think what it does is it reinforces this narrative that I've been telling myself that I'm a failure and I can't follow through on anything and finish anything. Another thing that's really interesting is Julia Cameron this week talks about shame. And who doesn't love Brené Brown and shame? I had a really interesting encounter with shame this week, and I wanted to share with that. So for context, I'm a musician, and one of the things I do as a musician is I have several ensemble jobs that are choral jobs where I go in and I act as like a section leader for a different ensemble. And we were doing some new repertoire, which meant I needed to sight read. Sight reading is when you perform music that you've never seen before and you just like do it for the first time. While I'm not a bad sight reader, I feel like my sight reading skills could be stronger, and I probably have, you know, somewhat unreasonable expectations for how good my sight reading should be. So it was kind of scary for me when I'm in this rehearsal and suddenly I'm like, oh gosh, we're getting new music right now and I need to sight read. So I just had this sudden thought take over me that has never taken over me before as I'm starting to panic. And I was like, what if I just didn't feel bad about it? Like, what if I just didn't feel shame right now during this rehearsal? What if I sight read this and completely forgave myself for any mistakes I might make and didn't beat myself up even once? And I've never done that before. And let me tell you, I did the best sight reading I've ever done in my entire life. And I think what that taught me is normally when I'm sight reading, my brain is busy doing two different things. So like half of my brain is dedicated to sight reading the music, and half of the brain is dedicated to me just absolutely bullying myself and beating myself up and being really horrible to myself. And I realized that when I use my whole brain to focus on sight reading, my sight reading gets better. I realized what a hypocrite I am too, because with my students, I always say that my sight reading motto is wrong and strong. So basically, like, I tell my students, you know, like, you're seeing something for the first time, so just taking a crack at it, and no matter how much you get wrong, like as long as you're doing your absolute best, is totally enough. And it's just, any effort is just excellent. And so wrong and strong. And I really gotta internalize that a little bit more. I think one of the things that this really enlightened for myself, like this experience with the sight reading, was that I expect myself to be running at 150% capacity all the time. And like, that's so unrealistic and so detrimental. And it has not led to good things. Like, it's not like that's been great for me. It's led to a lot of burnout, and also it's led to constantly feeling like a failure, because like you can't give 150%. Like 100% is the whole thing. I've just realized this week that like I am in fact a human woman and not a machine. Julia Cameron talks this week about the fact that like you might find yourself on a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. And like, wow, is she really, she just hit the nail on the head with that one. It was a crazy week. Like, this is the most exhausting, draining, demanding week I have ever had. And I also spent a lot of time this week feeling sad, and I felt sad mostly about two things. For the past version of myself that was just so mean to me and spent so much time bullying myself. The other thing that was really hard for me to come to terms with this week was the fact that I realized I wasn't a dumb kid. Like growing up, because I had some teachers and mentors who were not nice to me, I really had this fundamental belief that I was stupid. And I realized that like I just was not supported and given the tools that I needed to be successful, and I wasn't dumb. And so that was really sad to realize that like I could have had so much better and I deserved it and I didn't get it. You know, thankfully I did have some people that worked really hard to make sure I made it through and who really supported me and like make sure I survived that time in my life, especially my teen years. So if that's you and you're one of those people that like dragged me over the finish line against my will, thank you so much. I needed that. And I would not be here without several key mentors who did that. But yeah, this week I've been doing some mourning for like the childhood and the teen years that I deserved and definitely didn't get, which is sad, but I think that a lot of us can probably relate to this. And so if you're feeling that way or you're realizing that, just know that like I totally feel for you. Julia Cameron gives us a really beautiful step-by-step guide for dealing with criticism this week, which is fantastic because this week, this freelance musician received an incredible amount of rejection and criticism. So that was welcomed. Something that kept coming up in my morning pages this week was just like how proud of myself I am. Like I have done so many hard things, and this week put me in some really like nasty situations that were really, really tough. And I feel like I was able to deal with them so gracefully and so elegantly. And I don't know that I would have been able to do that before. And so I'm just so proud. Like throughout the week, it would like overtake me and I would just be like, oh my God, I'm proud of myself. This week I stepped so far outside of my comfort zone and like stepped up to the plate, and I managed to not completely abandon and sabotage myself in times of stress, which is amazing. You know, I'm obviously really going through it and really having a hard time, but I'm doing a great job at it and I'm so proud. I'm so happy with myself. I loved the assignments this week. Like I said, this week we kind of focused on more positive things from childhood, which I was really ready to do after the week I had. We were supposed to describe 5 traits that you liked in yourself as a child, and childhood me was really cool. Like I was a really funny kid. I was really weird and quirky, and I just like marched to the beat of my own little drum. And I did my own thing, and I was really kind and really creative. And one of the things I remember most fondly about myself as a child is just like how good I felt when I was helping. Like if I could feel helpful and useful and like I was helping somebody and making a difference at something, I felt so good, and that was like the best. And I just think that's such a fantastic thing to be as a child, and I'm so proud that like that's the kid that I was. And then we also listed 5 childhood accomplishments, and that was really like great for my self-esteem to remember like little me and be like, you go girl. This week I also made a list, you know, per the book's instructions, of all of the people and friends who like nurture me and support me. So this is the opposite of the poisonous playmate that we talked about last week. And I even reached out to those people because I'm obviously kind of going through it right now, and I figured it would be really nice to have them around. And not shocking, they all like stepped up to the plate and have been completely amazing, and I would not be able to get through this like rough patch without them. This week also had us list 5 people that we admire and 5 people we secretly admire, and just decide and write about what they have in common and like what traits they share. And it was really interesting because I realized that all of the people I really, really admire all have this like sense of self-confidence and like really good self-worth. And it's funny because I feel like I'm really great at projecting that. Like I get that a lot. I get that a lot from the people around me. Like, oh, you're so confident. And it's like, girl, I'm good at putting on a show. But when it comes to like me and actually like my self-talk, it's not great. For my artist date, I crushed it this week, y'all. I went to the library and I absolutely loved it. So I got to spend time at a beautiful place. I was writing, drawing, I got to read, I did some dreaming, and it was amazing. And then later in the week, I had a really, really nasty, terrible interaction with somebody, and I was just feeling really horrible and really anxious and unhappy, and I just didn't know what to do, and like my space was kind of chaotic, and it was making me feel terrible, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the library. So lo and behold, I took a book and a journal and I went to the library and I listened to Chopin, and I had like an angsty little moment and like wrote about my feelings and like really got myself to a place where I felt okay again, and it was amazing. And so I've never been a person who really goes to the library. I went a little bit as a kid, but like not a ton. It's not a place we went all the time. And it is like my new happy place as an adult. So Library Artist Date was like 11 out of 10. I drew, I had a great time, and there's just something so soothing about being at the library. Like it's just such a wonderful ambiance. I don't know. So I did my morning pages every day, like I said, and I have actually previously done morning pages in the past. So I heard about them before I actually got the book and did The Artist's Way the first time and failed. And I really liked them until I got to a point where my life, there was just too much going on, and I was already waking up really early, and then waking up 20 to 30 minutes earlier than that to like write my morning pages was terrible for me, and I grew to hate it, and I really loathed the morning pages. But now it's like this wonderful happy space that I have to meet myself every morning, and it's great. It's like I do it first thing in the morning when the coffee is brewing. It's such a fantastic way to start the day. So, you know, I've really come up with cool ideas in my morning pages. I managed to counsel myself. I work through trauma. I'm like brainstorming. I'm making jokes. I'm writing affirmations. It's a great place to be, and it's like such a fantastic way to start my day. So I think that even if you don't know that you're in a space in your life right now where you can really commit to like doing this course, I think that morning pages might be a really fantastic place to start and to just like jump off. All right, that is all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so excited for week 4, and I'm so excited to share all of the wonderful and amazing things that I'm sure it's gonna bring. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe to the channel and like my content if you feel called to do that. It would mean a lot. So thank you so much. Bye.